Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Trinadapi Sunichena Torad Eva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sada Hari Hare Nama Hare Nama Eva Kevalam Kalo Nastyeva Gatir Anyata Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hey Krishna 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 Hey Krishna 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 Rakshama Krishna 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 Ahima Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rakshama Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Ahima Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajaka Astotra Sattasi Sriman His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Syama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Jamuna Devi Ki Jai Ganga Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Damodar Vrata Ki Jai Urja Vrata Ki Jai Kartik Vrata Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So just to refresh our Krishna book memory, last week we entered Mathura and we saw that Krishna dealt with a washerman and he dealt with a tailor and he benedicted a garland maker, and we ended up with Krishna promising to come to Kubja's house after all his business was finished. And Krishna, of course, because Kubja satisfied Krishna and Balaram by listing the sandalwood pulp, which was meant for Kamsa. But she said, no, I don't know anybody better than you two to give this sandalwood. And Kubja was Trivakra. She was a hunchback woman in 3 places. So Krishna stepped on her toes, gave her a jerk, and then turned her into a beautiful young girl. And Kubja snatched Krishna's clothing and said, "You cannot leave me. I want you to come to my house where I can serve you." Krishna said, "No, not now. I have some business to do. When I'm done, certainly I will come and see you." And that's where we left off. So this episode is called Krishna Breaks the Sacrificial Bow, because that was the pretext of Kamsa's invitation. When he sent to Kura, the pretext was everybody should come and see the sacrifice for the bow. And so that was the initial ploy, just to get Krishna and Balaram from Vrindavan to Mathura. Let's begin. Krishna thus satisfied Kubja with sweet words. Leaving her there, Krishna proceeded down the street of the marketplace, where the citizens were prepared to receive Krishna with various kinds of presentations, especially betel nuts, flowers, and sandalwood pulp. The mercantile men in the market worshipped both Krishna and Balaram with great respect. And when Krishna was passing through the street, all the ladies in the surrounding houses came out to see Krishna, while some of the younger ones practically fainted because they were all captivated by Krishna's beauty. Their hair and tight clothing loosened, and they forgot where they were standing. Next, Krishna inquired from the citizens as to the location of the place of the sacrificial bow. Kamsa had arranged for the sacrifice, which was called Dhanur Yagya. And to designate this particular sacrifice, Kamsa had placed a big bow near the sacrificial altar. This bow was very big and wonderful, and resembled a cloud in the sky. Within the sacrificial arena, this bow, which also resembled a rainbow, was protected by many constables, and watchmen were engaged by King Kamsa. As Krishna and Balaram approached the bow, they were warned, "Do not go any nearer." But Krishna ignored this warning. Instead, Krishna forcibly went up and immediately took the big bow in his left hand, and after stringing the bow in the presence of the crowd, Krishna drew it and broke it at the middle into two parts, exactly as an elephant breaks sugarcane in the field. Everyone present appreciated Krishna's power. The sound of the bow cracking filled both sky and land, and it was heard by Kamsa. And when Kamsa heard what had happened, he began to fear for his life. The caretakers of the bow, who were standing by and watching, became very angry, and with their respective weapons in hand, they rushed towards Krishna, shouting, "Arrest him! Arrest him! Kill him! Kill him!" However, Krishna and Balaram became surrounded, and when they understood the sinister motives of the guards, Krishna and Balaram became angry, and taking up the two pieces of the broken bow, Krishna and Balaram began to beat off all of Kamsa's caretakers. While this turmoil was going on, Kamsa sent a small group of troops in order to assist the caretakers. But Krishna and Balaram fought with them and killed every one of them. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So there are some notes which I got from the Bhagavatam, which will be very, very instructive and finer points of this section. Bhagavatam commentary says, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti states that since the women of Mathura immediately experienced symptoms of conjugal attraction when they saw Krishna, they had to be the most advanced devotees in the city of Mathura. And the 10 effects of Cupid which they experienced are described as follows. First comes attraction expressed through the eyes, then intense attachment within the mind, then determination, loss of sleep, becoming emaciated, disinterested in external things, shamelessness, madness, becoming stunned, and death. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So our next episode is entitled, Kamsa Sees Cruel Death. After the breaking of the bow, Krishna did not proceed further into the sacrificial arena, but instead went out of the gate and proceeded towards their resting camp. Along the way, Krishna visited various places in Mathura city, and he did this with great delight. Seeing the activities and wonderful prowess of Krishna, all the citizens of Mathura began to consider that these two brothers, Krishna and Balaram, must be demigods who had come down to Mathura. And so the citizens looked upon Krishna and Balaram with great astonishment. The two transcendental brothers strolled carefree in the street, not caring for the law and order of Kamsa. And as sunset approached, Krishna, Balaram, and their cowherd boyfriends went to the outskirts of the city where all their bullock carts were assembled. Thus, Krishna and Balaram gave some preliminary hints of their arrival to Kamsa, and Kamsa could understand what severe type of danger was awaiting him the next day in the sacrificial arena. When Krishna and Balaram were going from Vrindavana to Mathura, the inhabitants of Vrindavan had imagined the great fortune of the citizens of Mathura in being able to see the wonderful beauty of Krishna. Krishna, who is worshipped by pure devotees, and Krishna is also worshipped by the goddess of fortune herself. The fantasies of the residents of Vrindavan were now actually realized, for the citizens of Mathura became fully satisfied by seeing Krishna and Balaram. So when Krishna and Balaram returned to their camp, Krishna was taken care of by servants who washed Krishna's lotus feet, gave Krishna a nice sitting place, and offered Krishna milk and palatable dishes. After taking supper and thinking of the next day's program, Krishna very peacefully took rest. Thus, Krishna passed the night there. But meanwhile, on the other side, when Kamsa came to understand about the breaking of his wonderful bow and the killing of his caretakers and soldiers by Krishna and Balaram, Kamsa could partially realize the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kamsa could now realize that the eighth son of Devaki had appeared and that now his death was imminent. Thinking of his imminent death, Kamsa was restless the entire night. Kamsa began to have many inauspicious visions, and Kamsa could understand that Krishna and Balaram, who had approached the precincts of the city, were actually messengers of death meant for him. Kamsa saw various kinds of inauspicious signs both while awake and dreaming. When Kamsa would look in the mirror, he could not see his own head, although his head was actually present. Kamsa could see the luminaries in the sky, but they were double, although there was only one set factually. Kamsa began to see holes in his shadow. Kamsa could hear a high buzzing sound within his ears. All the trees before Kamsa appeared to be made of gold, and Kamsa could not see his own footprints in dust or muddy clay. In dreams, Kamsa saw various kinds of ghosts being carried in carriages drawn by donkeys. Kamsa also dreamed that someone had given him poison and he was drinking it. Kamsa dreamed also that he was going naked with a garland of flowers and was smearing oil all over his body. Thus, as Kamsa saw various signs of death, both while awake and sleeping, Kamsa could understand that his death was certain, and thus, in great anxiety, Kamsa could not rest that night. Just after the night expired, Kamsa busily arranged for the wrestling match. The wrestling arena was nicely cleansed, decorated with flags, festoons, and flowers, and the match was announced by the beating of kettle drums. The platform appeared very beautiful due to the streamers and flags. Different types of galleries were arranged for respectable persons such as kings, brahmanas, and other warriors. The various kings had reserved thrones, and others had special seats arranged for them also. Kamsa then finally arrived, accompanied by his various ministers and secretaries, and Kamsa sat on the raised platform which was especially meant for him. But unfortunately, although Kamsa was sitting in the center of all his governing executive heads, his heart was palpitating out of fear of death. It seems cruel death evidently does not care even for a person as powerful as Kamsa. For when death comes, it does not care for anyone's exalted position. When everything was complete, the wrestlers, who were to exhibit their skills before the assembly, strolled into the arena. They were decorated with nice ornaments and dress. Some of the famous wrestlers were Chanura, Mushtika, Shala, Kuta, and Toshala. And being enlivened by the musical concert, the wrestlers passed through with great alacrity, liveliness, and eagerness. Meanwhile, all the respectable cowherd men who had come from Vrindavan, headed by Nanda Maharaj, were also welcomed by Kamsa. And after presenting Kamsa with milk products which they had brought with them, the cowherd men also took their respective seats by the side of the king on a platform especially meant for them. Here are some notes on this section from Srimad Bhagavatam. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, King Kamsa respectfully called the leaders of Braja forward so that they could make their offerings to the central government. Kamsa assured Nanda as follows: "My dear King of Braja, you are the most important of my village rulers. Yet, even though you have come to Mathura from your cowherder village, you have not come to visit me. Is it because you are frightened? Do not think that your two sons are bad because they broke the bow. No, I invited them here because I have heard that they are extremely powerful. And so I have arranged this wrestling match as a test. I want to see their strength. So please come forward without hesitation. You have no reason to be afraid." Nanda Maharaj, however, noticed his two sons were not yet present. Apparently, out of disrespect for King Kamsa's order, Krishna and Balaram had taken the morning off and had gone elsewhere. Thus, Kamsa delegated some of the cowherder men to go look for Krishna and Balaram and advised them to behave properly and come back to the wrestling arena. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kuvalayad Pida. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. After taking bath and finishing all their morning duties, Krishna and Balaram could hear the beating of the kettle drums in the wrestling camp. Immediately they prepared themselves to proceed to that spot just to see the fun. When Krishna and Balaram reached the gate of the wrestling camp, they saw a big elephant of the name Kuvalayapida, and he was being tended by a caretaker riding on his head. And the caretaker was deliberately blocking the entrance for Krishna and Balaram by keeping Kuvalayapida in the front gateway. Krishna could understand the purpose of the caretaker, and so Krishna prepared himself by tightening his clothes before combating the elephant. Krishna addressed the caretaker in a very grave tone, which resounded like a cloud. "You miscreant caretaker, give way and let me pass through the gate. But if you block my way, I shall send you and your elephant to the house of death personified." The caretaker, being thus insulted by Krishna, became very angry, and in order to challenge Krishna, as was previously planned, the caretaker provoked the elephant to attack. The elephant then moved before Krishna like inevitable death. It rushed towards Krishna and tried to catch Krishna with its trunk. But Krishna very dexterously moved behind the elephant. Being able to see only to the end of his trunk, the elephant could not see Krishna hiding behind its legs. Still, the elephant tried to capture Krishna with his trunk. Again, Krishna very quickly escaped capture and again ran behind the elephant, catching his tail. Holding the elephant by his tail, Krishna began to pull it, and with very great strength, Krishna dragged the elephant for at least 25 yards, just as Garuda drags an insignificant snake. Krishna pulled the elephant from this side to that, from right to left, just as Krishna used to pull a calf by its tail in his childhood. After this, Krishna then went in front of the elephant and gave the elephant a strong slap. Krishna then slipped away from the elephant's view and ran to its back. Then, falling down on the ground, Krishna placed himself in front of the elephant's two legs, causing the elephant to trip and fall. Krishna immediately got down, but the elephant, thinking that Krishna was still lying down, tried to push an ivory tusk through the body of Krishna by forcibly stabbing it into the ground. Although the elephant was harassed and angry, the caretaker riding on the elephant's head tried to provoke the elephant further. The elephant then rushed madly towards Krishna. As soon as the elephant came within reach, Krishna caught hold of the trunk and pulled the elephant down. And when the elephant and caretaker fell, Krishna jumped down on the elephant, breaking off one of its tusks, and with that tusk, killed the elephant and the caretaker also. After killing the elephant, Krishna took the ivory tusk on his shoulder, decorated with drops of perspiration and sprinkled with the blood of the elephant. Krishna looked very beautiful, and thus Krishna proceeded towards the wrestling arena. Lord Balaram took the other tusk of the elephant on his shoulder, accompanied by their cowherder boyfriends. Then they entered the wrestling arena. Here are some notes from the Bhagavatam on this section. Krishna and Balaram were thinking that after they had made their power known by breaking the bow and by performing other feats, Krishna's parents still had not secured freedom. Kamsa indeed was trying to kill Vasudeva and Devaki. Therefore, although Kamsa is Krishna and Balaram's maternal uncle, it would not be wrong for Krishna and Balaram to kill Kamsa. Krishna and Balaram were thus assured of their offenselessness by this reasoning. When Lord Krishna was preparing for the fight, Krishna put aside his jacket, tightened his belt, and tied back his hair. Lord Krishna allowed the elephant to seize him so that the beast would be encouraged to keep fighting. Once Kuvalaya Pida had thus become proud, Lord Krishna again thwarted the elephant with his superior potency. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.